Saudi-led coalition says that it has carried out what it calls limited preemptive strikes in Yemen to stop the conflict with United Arab Emirates-backed secessionists from escalating. The target was a camp in al-Dale in southern Yemen. Hospital sources say that at least 4 civilians were killed. Those locations are said to be used by the southern separatist leader, Aidarous al-Zubaidi, to arm and rally his forces. The strikes came hours after he was due to board a plane to Riyadh, where peace talks are scheduled to be held. The coalition says his whereabouts is unknown. The separatists say that he's in Aden. Aidarous al-Zubaidi is a prominent Yemeni political figure who has been advocating for the independence of southern Yemen. During his earlier military career, al-Zubaidi served as an Air Force officer before joining the Special Security Forces. He became president of the Southern Transitional Council in 2017. Since then, he has been pushing for international recognition of southern Yemen's sovereignty. Joining us, Al Jazeera's Hisham is in the studio with us. He's covered the region extensively. And from Washington, D.C., Hisham al-Omeisy is also with us, a political and conflict analyst focusing on Yemen. I want to ask both of you for your big picture explanation on what is going on in southern Yemen right now. This is something we've been covering for the last 8 to 9 days. Just as a quick recap to our viewers, we had separatist forces in the south that want to make Yemen an independent country. They were backed by the UAE. About a week ago, maybe a little bit more, Saudi Arabia said UAE needs to get out of there. And they did. So now we're left with this confrontation between Saudi and these southern forces, the head of which was supposed to get on a flight, go to Riyadh, and talk it all out yesterday. He didn't get on that flight. Hisham, you first.
Well, honestly, talking to some friends in the South in the STC, they basically said Aidarous feared that if he's going to go to Riyadh, he's going to be basically quartered and possibly imprisoned. And he tried to pull a quick one by basically delaying the departure of his flight while he organizes his troops on the ground and deploying some of the military towards Abdallah and moving some of the equipment and the weapons towards Abdallah. Unfortunately, the coalition got a wind of this, and they attacked the camps, as you mentioned earlier, and some of the convoys, by the way. But that was a political suicide, honestly, because by doing that, he basically indicated that he is going to be leading an insurgency inside the country, which basically led the Presidential Leadership Council to issue a decree ousting him from the PLC, but also
the PLC is Yemen's internationally recognized government.
Yes, it is. It is. And he's basically right now a fugitive. They accused him of high treason, and he's on the run.
Hashim?
So basically, the Saudis were hoping to see Aidarous al-Zubaidi lead a delegation from Aden yesterday, arrive in Riyadh, where they would start talks for the future of the south of Yemen and Yemen in general.
So they favored the diplomatic route, talks, negotiations.
Listen, having Aidarous al-Zubaidi, the leader of the separatists in Riyadh, would have been the biggest diplomatic breakthrough for Saudis as far as Yemen is concerned in many years.
You said this yesterday when we discussed this before he was scheduled to get on the plane, and you had told us this exactly. You said, look, this would be a diplomatic coup if the Saudis can bring him to the negotiating table. Well, he didn't go.
They have managed to convince some key players like Abu Zar al-Mahrami, who's also a secessionist, to join the talks in Riyadh. Hani bin Break, very close to Aidarous al-Zubaidi, is in Abu Dhabi. He's been very critical today of Saudi Arabia. But if the STC's leader was going to go to Riyadh, it would be the beginning of the end of the secessionist sentiment across the country. The Saudis would put together a new roadmap for the future. It would be a big diplomatic breakthrough. Now, we have to wait and see whether, by not showing up, al-Zubaidi wants to send a message that he's going to fight until the end. As Hisham said, it's obvious that the Saudis intercepted a movement of his troops. I'm talking about thousands of fighters, the elite of the fighters in Yemen, backed by the Emirates for quite some time. They are very well equipped, very well trained, and they were repositioning themselves in al-Dala, which is the hometown of al-Zubaidi. There were talks that suggested that perhaps he was staging a surprise attack to take over Aden, eject the PLC, which is the internationally recognized government backed by Saudi Arabia, and say, I am the de facto leader. Whatever you have to do has to come through me. And it would be a major diplomatic win for him. But he knows today that there's absolutely no way for him or his fighters to move to rural areas because they will be easily monitored, intercepted, and targeted. I assume they would move to urban centers, blend in with the local population, and launch a guerrilla warfare against the government of Rashad al-Alimi for as long as it takes. He has thousands of troops still loyal to him, tribal leaders still loyal to him. Will that continue? Saudis have a huge political, financial leverage they can use to convince more and more people to join Riyadh for the talks. For now, they may not happen, those talks, but the Saudis will continue to push for a way out, which has to happen in Riyadh.
Hisham, is there, and by the way, Hashim, if you want to jump in and ask Hisham a question, go right ahead. But Hisham, is there a way out? Because both of you have said right now, with where things are, fighting is kind of the only way this is going to happen, from the Saudi perspective and from the STC, Southern Separatist perspective. Is there a way back from that?
Definitely there is. Over the past 2 days, the Saudis have managed to kind of pull the rug from underneath Aidarous al-Zubaidi. They peeled away some of his key partners, even within the PLC, like Abu Zar'a, like Tariq, like others. They peeled them away. They peeled away some of his tribal, basically backers and some followers. The coalition even issued a statement over the past few hours, basically asking people in Adala and in Aden and in Lahj as well, to basically not stand with Aidarous, not to drag the whole country into a bloody conflict. And a lot of people actually heeded the call. So the Saudis kind of diluting his clout, his political leverage inside the country. And Aidarous, this is one of the reasons why he basically feared for himself and boarding the plane. He felt like they already took the air out of him and they already peeled away his supporters. And he was just basically going to be imprisoned in Riyadh. So this is basically where he basically decided to take a stand, to launch this insurgency from inside the country and basically hold up in his stronghold in Al-Dala and fight through that basically triangle of Dala, Abiyan, and Aden. But this is going to come at a very high cost. He was willing to take it.
Sorry to interrupt you. Do you think that the dream for an independent southern state is over, or it still resonates among thousands and thousands of the people in the south who still genuinely believe that there is no way they will join a united Yemen?
Here's the thing. A lot of people have tried to dismiss the fact that a lot of people actually support secession. There is a faction that still supports secession. But because of what had happened over the past 10 years, because people have been disenfranchised, the war fatigue, a lot of people were basically saying, you know what, we can put that aside for the time being. Let's address some of the main immediate issues, livelihoods, basically the economy. They wanted to basically put bread on the tables. And this is one of the things that Aidarous basically miscalculated and thought, you know what, people will do or die over secession, when people are actually wanted their immediate needs to be addressed as a priority.
Hashim, I have a question for you, and this is based on information that I'm getting now. It seems that there's a split within the Southern Transitional Council. Reminder to our viewers, Southern Transitional Council is the STC. They are fighting for an independent country. They want to split Yemen in two, and they want Southern Yemen. So this STC is saying that they have actually gone to Riyadh. So we were just saying their leader, Aidarous al-Zubaidi, did not get on the plane. Mm-hmm. Yet they sent a delegation to Riyadh. So to Hisham's earlier point, it does seem that there's a split within the STC, and at least part of them are willing to engage in dialogue. That's the very latest information that we have. And they're even saying, I'll just add this one last thing, they're saying that they regret that there's no communication essentially between the two sides of the STC.
You know what shocked me first time I traveled across the southern part of Yemen is the nuances. Like the urbanites of Aden are secessionists in their own way. The tribal communities in Shabwa and Dala and Abiyan are secessionists their own way. But the people of Mahra and Hadramout have close ties with Saudi Arabia, and they don't mind having an independent state which has only Hadramout and Abiyan and Mahra. They don't want to do with the tribal communities further south. And this is still continues, and this explains what you're seeing now on the latest developments. But you know, they also understand the STC, it doesn't make sense. The Saudis wanted to see Aidarous al-Zubaidi because he's the most powerful, he's the symbol of the secessionist movement, and they wanted him to be a Riyadh. First of all, for two particular reasons. To reassure people that STC is on board. Two, I've been talking to people yesterday, and they said he committed himself to going to Riyadh, and he said, give me time, I will show up at the airport and I will go and we will join the talks. When he didn't show up, they intercepted movements in Adala, and they know very well the number of fighters under his command. He has an elite force, a presidential guard, and a brigade called al-Zubaidi's guard. Very well trained, very well equipped. Today they fired two ministers, which they accuse of shipping weapons to fighters loyal to him to stage a rebellion in Aden, eject the government of Rashad al-Alimi. So for the Saudis, this is not just somebody who decided on a whim not to show up. This is someone who wants to stage
had a plan, right?
plan
to oppose them.
And you know, it's such a delicate, complex political landscape that you want to see someone step in.
Hisham, go ahead.
I was just going to say also that he had received a green light from his backers as well. I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I don't think he would have escalated, he would have dared to take this move if he didn't get some green light from his regional backers as well. And he realized that Saudis have peeled some of his partners, local partners, but he knows that if this drags, that he can launch a long-winded insurgency inside the country, and he would have a lot of sympathizers, especially if the Saudi-led coalition basically it ends with atrocities inside the country, if the airstrikes end up hitting schools, hitting civilians, and then he could play to that tune and basically get a lot of popular backing, not just in Adala, but elsewhere, in a similar manner that the Houthis did in the north. That he has a playbook that he can follow in the north. And he could just try and replicate that in his areas under his control or under his influence.
Okay. Hisham al-Omeisy, thank you so much for joining us. You're in Washington, D.C. It's the middle of the night right now for you, but I think you're living on Yemen time right now. We appreciate you being with us.
Yes. Thank you so much.
And Hisham al-Bauer, Al Jazeera's correspondent, thank you very much. We see you in Europe these days. We're so happy to have you in the studio for a little bit.
Same here.
Thank you, Hisham.
Thank you.
Don't miss out, get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.